Hello and welcome to Cheshire Audio. Now today what I'm going to do, I keep seeing on forums and I keep being asked the question, how do you upgrade the cartridge on a Rega Planar 1? And the reason the question's asked is that a Planar 1 is kind of plug and play. It hasn't got any calibration for setting the arm. There's no weight adjustment. There's no bias adjustment. There's no anything really. So it is you just push the weight on as far as it'll go, and the deck is set up. You can fit other cartridges to it. You just need you need a few tools, and you need to understand sort of weights and all that sort of thing, and what you can and can't do. So what I'm going to do is just show you how to fit a different cartridge to a Planar 1, and just show you how it's done, and some things to look out for. So okay, let's go ahead. Okay, so here we have Planar 1 fitted with carbon cartridge. You'll need a stylus balance, which that's a project one, which is an electronic one. There's various different types. I'll show you one of the alternatives actually before I sort of go ahead. You'll need an alignment protractor, because you need to be able to align the cartridge. You need the cartridge you're going to fit, which I'm going to fit an Ortofon term Red. Allen key in this case, sometimes a flat blade screwdriver, or sometimes whatever comes in the kit actually. A pair of decent long nose pliers. They need to be quite fine tipped long nose pliers, and if necessary, a pair of glasses. If you need glasses, use your glasses, because you really will. I'd be lost. I can't do it without glasses at all. It all goes badly wrong. So that's what we need. Sit down. I'll show you the alternative. You can get these on various things like this on eBay. There's these, in price range from sort of £20 upwards. This was about 90, I think, but it's got a little pad there, and you rest the stylus on, and it tells you the weight on the screen. There's things like this, which this is made by Shure, which I don't think you can get these in the UK anymore, but basically move around the scale at this end, put the stylus on that end, and when it balances, it's the right weight. These are actually quite good. There are budget versions of these. I think Ortofon themselves actually make, or Project and Ortofon seem to have one that they supply, but I think they're actually marked in newtons rather than grams, which is a bit confusing. But they work very well. It's just literally, either it'll have a movable balance, or there'll be a read off on it that you can actually set things up. Stylus alignment. This is the Rega alignment gauge, which is useful in French and in English, if you need that. With this, what you do is, I don't know if you see on that, there's some parallel lines, and here there's I'm just going to put that down so it's easy to show. Parallel lines, and there's a cross here which has actually got a little pinprick in the centre there, and that's when you're aligning. I'll show you how that works, but it's showing the examples there. What you want is a stylus on the cross, and you align until the cartridge, well, I tend to do the head shell first, get the head shell straight with the parallel lines, and then you move the cartridge around so that the cartridge is straight within the head shell, and then everything's right. But I'll show you that in better detail when we're doing it, because it's easier to actually show while we're doing it, really. Hopefully this is focusing, because these cameras aren't that good at close focus. Okay, so let's get the old cartridge off, and let's go from there. Right, okay, to remove the old cartridge, the bolts are Allen bolts, so we've got a 2mm Allen key. So just slacking that off, see if we can do it. On go. Bit of a fiddle, but so be very careful when you're doing this, you don't actually catch the stylus. I actually left the guard on with this one. Sometimes you can't always get the Allen key in there with the guard on. One. And the carbide is actually a really good cartridge. It's it does suit the Planar 1 really well. So I tend to say just use the carbon until it's worn out, and then think about changing them. Really, it's seems to be a lot of people are sort of very worried that it's a budget cartridge, but the cartridge is kind of the least important part of the deck, really. Now, we've talked about this one before. It's a case of the cartridge is only as good as what's in front of it. It needs to be supported by the tone arm, and the tone arm needs to be protected from vibration by the deck, and the deck needs to run at the correct speed and all this sort of thing. And the things that the deck do are much more important than the things that the cartridge do. And the cartridge can't do its utmost unless the deck itself is doing everything it should do. So it's like a hierarchy, really. But saying that, P1 is good enough to take a better cartridge. So within reason, it seems to have locked itself in there. Okay. Right, we don't actually need the nuts on this. Okay, so just to remove the wires, always use long nose pliers. Don't do it with your fingers. I've had quite a few people sort of pulling at this with the fingers, and it's come off quickly, and they've actually managed to pull the wires out of the base of the arm. Not just with Regas, that's quite common with quite a few turntables, really. So we'll get onto it. Slow pressure. I tend to use my thumb just to pressure the wire off. I tend to grip just behind where the actual broader part of the tag is. So that's off. Right, so we're ready to fit the new cartridge. Okay, so now we've got the 4 wires sticking out here. Got red, white, green, blue. Your red is your right positive. I tend to remember that by think about the letter R is red for right. Green always goes with that because that's your right negative. And my strange way of remembering it is traffic lights, red and green. So that's your right channel, positive, negative. The blue and the white are the other two. So white is your positive left, and its partner, the blue, is left negative. On the back of the cartridge, sometimes if you're lucky, like on an Ortofon, these are actually colour coded. So you've got red, white, green and blue actually marked on the back. Rega cartridges and quite a lot of others, actually, Audio Technicas and various others, no markings whatsoever, except, you won't be able to see this on the camera because the close focus isn't there really. What it looks like is this. You've got 4 pins, and there's sort of embossed into the plastic moulding on the back. There's letter R, a letter L, plus and a minus. So that means that this pin is right positive, that pin is right negative, that one is left positive, that one is left negative. So in this case, right positive, so your red goes there, your white goes there, your green goes there, and your blue goes there. They do that. The actual order can vary a little bit, so don't take that as an actual truth. Some cartridges, I've seen it with one channel's one way around, the other channel has the earth at the top. So it's don't give it a close look and make sure you can actually identify what's what. Because if you do get it wrong, it can sound really weird, and you can actually make it sound really weird if you get the negatives the wrong way around. It actually cancels out like signal. I think I've think about that in the past in certain situations. It depends on how the system's wired, I think, sometimes. Anyway, so that's that part of it. Okay, so let's fit the new cartridge. Now I tend to sort of go whichever way you feel most comfortable with. I tend to wire it first, because once it's actually bolted into position, there's not a lot of movement, but it's not easy to see what you're actually connecting to. So just make sure these are all untangled. Okay. Put the camera in a really awkward place. I'm sort of trying to reach around it. Okay, so sometimes you'll find that the actual pins themselves are slightly thicker or thinner than what you're connected to. Luckily with this one, it seems to be fine. Yeah. At this point I realise I haven't actually put my glasses on, so who knows how it's going to turn out. must admit, I'm fitting this 2M because it was to hand. I don't actually think the 2M series really suit Regas very well, but that's possibly me. I think they sound very, very detailed on a Rega, but they don't seem to really have sort of much life in them. But then again, generally, I think I probably shouldn't say this, I actually preferred the previous range that Ortofon did, the 500 series. Those seem to be much more dynamic than these. A bit rough and ready by comparison, but a lot more dynamic sounding. So yeah, that's all wired in. Now this doesn't need, I mean the forearm's gone nuts on this. You don't need a spacer with the 2M. Possibly if you're putting because it's probably 2 mils deeper than the carbon is. But actually when you look at a carbon fitted to a P1, if anything it's a bit too short for the alignment, so it's sort of, the arm's sort of rising uphill a little bit anyway, so with the 2M on it kind of equalises it, because Rega aren't actually that precious about VTA, and I think to a degree they're right. I think the benefits of not having an adjustment on the arm far outweigh any benefits of having it, if you know what I mean, because it does quite badly affect the quality of the arm if you have an adjuster on it. Kind of proved that with like Lin and SME arms, that you can just by moving the adjustment, the sound, the character of the arm can change quite markedly. Right, anyway, let's get I'm not going to get into that one because the negative comments will start clocking up. So, anyway, so I get the bolts in. Luckily this is part of the reason I wanted to fit this, because it's captive nut on these, so you can just fasten them in from the top. Normally, Allen bolts, if it's not captive, so if it's just a hole like on the carbon, you put the bolt in from underneath and put the nut in the top, because this little slot is designed to hold the nut in place so you can tighten it down. If it's captive, then you don't need to worry about that. You're just screwing into a thread within the body. I really should have put my glasses on. So just tighten it down. Well, tighten it until you just feel a bit of resistance. Don't get it really tight. Partly because if you tighten it right down, it'll actually bite into the finish of the tone arm. You don't want it biting in, finding its place before you've actually aligned it. So. Right, I suspect it needs to be a bit further forward. Let's put it like that. I'm going to take the guard off at this point. Now the first thing to do is actually do the alignment. What I would tend to do generally is just feel how heavy it feels, and if it's feeling really heavy, just move the weight back a little bit. You don't want it getting really, yeah, it feels about right. When you're doing the alignment, you don't want loads of weight on the stylus particularly. Right, let's get the stylus guard, the stylus alignment protractor. Right, yeah, quick edit there. Well, I've got my glasses on. I've actually moved the cartridge back just so we can, because the place I put it into is actually pretty much right, so I've just put it so it's wrong. Right, so release there, put the protractor onto the deck. Now what we're trying to do here is put the stylus onto the little cross. So we've got a little cross there, and let's put the stylus onto the cross, and hopefully, I don't know if I can do this with one hand. Right. I'll just put the camera down a sec while I just do that. It's definitely a two-handed job. Okay, so what I tend to do is just keep hold of the head shell and just drop it, and just move the actual platter itself. Right, that's spot on the cross. And from above it should line up like that diagram, and you won't be able to see this on the camera because it's a case of just aligning your eyes until you're directly above things. But basically, we're looking like, at the moment, we're looking like this. The sides of the head shell aren't parallel with the actual parallel lines. It's going off slightly to that angle, on this angle here. So what we do there is we'll move the cartridge slowly forward at that point. You sort of get the logic of it. I think if you'll realise that as the stylus moves forward, the cartridge, the actual alignment with the protractor will slowly start to even up. So let's move forward a little bit. I'm trying to show. Let's moved it quite a way because it was quite a long way out. So drop it on there. So now we've got. It is actually pretty well bob on that, you know. Like I say, I don't think you'll be able to see that on the camera because it doesn't focus well, and it's a case of just moving around and finding an eye line where you find the straight line and the straight line of the side of the head shell. So at this point, I would say that the actual cartridge tip is in the right place. What we also need to do, and you'll notice that the bolts aren't quite straight. Now, generally, I would say don't really use the bolts as a reference, but what it means is that the stylus is in the correct alignment place, but the cartridge itself isn't straight in the head shell, and it needs to be straight in the head shell. Now, with this, you can sort of see the body as well. So you can align the body within the head shell to be straight with the sides. I can't really show that on the camera easily, to be honest. But a quick sort of reference point are the bolts. Now, the only thing I'd say about that is there is a bit of tolerance with bolts, and they don't necessarily sit straight. Even when the cartridge is absolutely bang on straight, the bolts may not sit quite straight. So don't take it as an absolute definite. If the bolts are in line, then the cartridge is in line. Always check it. So I'm going to put the camera down and just sort of straighten it in the head shell. It's pretty straightforward with these. Right, what I might just do is just nip it up slightly because it's a little bit too slack that. There's a bit too much movement on it. Okay, let's try that again because I did move it. Yeah, spot on, actually. And you can just make out on the back of the. Actually, no, it isn't. Not quite. It's actually looking at the cartridge itself wasn't quite right. It's just trial and error. Just move the cartridge, check the alignment, move the cartridge, check the alignment, and eventually you'll find. Yeah, I think you get used to finding the right eye line as well from above. Yeah, that's looking straight now. So you're not going to be able to see that, but that is actually straight straight with the point on the protractor, and the cartridge is straight in the head shell. The bolts aren't quite straight with each other, but the cartridge is straight, so that's the correct alignment. So at that point we'll tighten it up. Don't over tighten, because particularly things like this, there's a plastic body cartridge that you do sort of introduce quite a bit of distortion, so you don't want to overdo it. Always double check after you've tightened up. Yeah, spot on. So we have alignment. So that's done. Yeah, okay, so we've got alignment on the cartridge. Always make sure, and I've come across this quite a bit actually, and if I extend the camera base, you'll be able to see it now. Just make sure that the wires are tucked up like that. I've had quite a lot of people actually fitted cartridge and then so it's skating across the album, and what they've done is they've not made sure that these are out of the way, because if these hit the record first, then it'll just skate across. and it's very easy to do. I've done it myself. So just make sure they're just nicely tucked up like that. When you're actually fitting, just make sure they're not too tangled up with each other. That sort of helps to keep these neat, really. Okay, let's sort the weight out. Stand back down again. Okay, so that's the gauge. So I'll switch that on. Zeros, you can calibrate these, so this has been calibrated recently, so don't worry about it too much. Okay, so let's move that across. Similar thing to the element protractor. Just move this around till you're in the right place. Which is a complete wild guess. It's going to look at 15.9. I need a bit more than that. So with the carbon cartridge, because the carbon cartridge weighs 5 grams. Now don't confuse the weight of the cartridge with the tracking force. The carbon weighs 5 grams. The Ortofon that we've fitted weighs 7.5 grams. So the plug and play aspect is set up so that when that weight is all right at this end, it's balanced for a 5 gram cartridge. So if you just push the weight all the way on and then fitted the Ortofon on, you would actually be tracking at the 2 grams that the carbon would track at, plus the extra 2.5 grams of the weight of the cartridge. So it'd be tracking at 4.5 grams, and we want it to track at 2 grams, or just I tend to just put those just under 2 grams quite often, 1.8, 1.9 even. So the way to counter that is we move the weight backwards, so that decreases the weight at the front of the cartridge. So where it is there, it's actually showing 1.572 grams. Just give that a bit of a move. I should put it around this way. I'm not actually filming this very well, am I? It is actually quite a difficult thing to film. A slight nudge in. Right. Okay. So we're on. That's pretty well done. It actually, I'd say about 1.9. Just for the sake of doing it, let's make it 2 grams. Okay, so let's see if we can actually get it to 2 grams. What I do, just slightly rotating the weight, because it just gives you that fine movement of pushing it in. So it's pushing in this way. That's slightly over, so we're pulling it back now. Slightly under. I might have to give up on this. That's too heavy. A bit less. Oof. Yeah. Okay. So if we wanted 2 grams, then that's kind of getting there. 2.03 grams. And on this arm, there's no what some people call anti-skate, but you really shouldn't call it anti-skate. There's no bias adjustment on the planar one. Again, because it makes it plug and play, because people don't understand, people who are not into record players just want it as simple as possible. You want to just push a weight on and use it. So there's no bias adjustment. It's not a problem. I mean, there's a lot of the forums and the Facebook pages and all this sort of thing, they go absolutely nuts with the fact there's no bias adjustment on this. It's preset to 2 grams. Now we're tracking the cartridge at 2 grams. 2 grams kind of covers anywhere from 1.5 gram tracking force up to 2.5 gram tracking force. It's pretty much anything you're going to fit to this turntable. A preset of 2 grams is right. I'll answer the phone and then I'll continue. Where were we? Yeah, bias adjustment. The fact it's got a fixed, the 2 gram but fixed bias covers pretty much anything you're going to fit to this. Right down to 1.5 grams or up to 2.5, whatever. That sort of range is covered by a 2 gram bias adjustment, really. I mean, there's a lot of turntables been produced over the years that don't have either don't have bias at all, or have fixed bias, or they'll only have very sort of specific graduations. And I've seen decks that have only had either 1 or 2 gram graduations and no way to adjust in between that. It's quite common to have say 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. Usually things like projects have a little outrigger, bit of wire on here and a hanging weight, and the little notches in there. And there's no way you could. I mean, I've seen people getting very upset with the Regas that have got adjustment, that they couldn't have 1.75 grams adjusted on the anti-skate control, and I can't think of any decks that would actually give you that sort of fine adjustment. Partly because it's not necessary; it's only a very, very subtle force, and also as the record plays, the amount of bias adjustment that is needed changes across the face of the record. It changes with the program material. So if you've got very, very dynamic material or very, very quiet material, the amount of bias needed is different. So it's an approximation. It's not something that has to be absolutely bob on. So fixed at 2 grams is it's almost genius, to be honest. I don't know why more manufacturers don't do it, but then it does cause this sort of issue with people getting very upset about it, and also it makes them quite difficult to set. When you've got calibration at that end of the tone arm, you have to set everything to 0, and if that isn't set to 0, it does actually make it quite difficult to find your 0 point. So I think they've done it right now. I think they used to have fixed bias on the Planar 2, and now they've put the adjustable bias back on it, which I think is a good move, really. But for the Planar 1, I think it really suits. I think it really suits what the market this is aimed at, really. So yeah, so we've got the weight set. That's pretty much done now. I think we're ready to go. I'll just stick a record on, and we can have a look at the. Just for people who are interested, have a look at the VTA, the vertical tracking angle, because you have to have letters to represent things. Let's go and find the record, and we'll put that on and have a look. Okay, put a record on. Not that it's relevant at all, but Joni Mitchell Blue, 50 years old this year. Actually, I think they had the anniversary was a few weeks ago, 1971. One of my favourite albums. It's kind of spoiled by the fact that just about every hi-fi demonstration room has a copy of this, but I've always loved Joni Mitchell. Probably the first album, Song for a Seagull, is probably my favourite one, but this is lovely. It's a really, really nice album. Yeah, sorry, I'm going off on a tie. Talking about music. So yeah, so we've got album on. So move across. So if you have a look, let's get down to the level of the tone arm. Oh, it's shining on there. Let's try. I'm just going to reposition the deck so we can see more clearly. Right, I've rotated it round so we're not fighting with the sun here. So if you drop down, the way to check the arm's level is just go right down and look, try and find sort of behind. So we're parallel with the top of the record. So it's the gap between the tone arm there. You sort of track along. It should stay even between the tone arm and the record. To be honest, a little bit of up at the back or down at the back, it's not that crucial. I mean, like I said, like Rega say about this, it's not massively important. But interesting with the 2N, I'd say even though it's almost a couple of millimetres taller than a bias, it's pretty well bob on level. So there's no issues with it. And it seems to be the case across the range that the 2Ms are fine. I mean, I've seen people. I think people look at the height discrepancy between cartridges and decide that's the size of space that they need, and that's not quite how it works. And even the Gokas are spot on, really. So I think the only cartridges I've come across that do cause problems with Regas are some of the Dynavectors. Ortofon moving coils, quintet range don't work on a Rega literally don't work on a Rega without a spacer. But you're not going to be putting a quintet onto a Planar 1, really. It'd be totally the wrong sort of balance. So, but anyway, that's done. That's an Ortofon 2M Red fitted to a Planar 1. So hopefully that's been useful. Turn the cartridge around. Oh, we've got the sun again, so let's move around here. Oh, knees have gone. So yeah, I hope that's useful. If got any questions, give us a call at the shop. Why I'm out of breath from fitting a cartridge, I don't know. I don't really. So yeah, if you like what you've seen, if you can click subscribe and give us a like, that'd be really good. Any other ideas? Just put them in the comments below. And thanks very much again. Hope this has been useful. Thank you. See you soon.